I'm Jennifer Copeland, North Carolina Council of Churches, and I greet you on behalf of the 18 denominations that make up the North Carolina Council of Churches. All of these people who stand behind me and spoke ahead of me told you about what happened in North Carolina, and they told you how it happened. They mentioned that information gleaned through torture is seldom, if ever, reliable, so you know the facts on the ground now. I'm going to suggest to you a reason for why we did it anyway. Why the United States did it anyway, why North Carolina participated. And what I have to say is more about us and less about the 49 people we know who were victims of torture on our watch in our state. You know about them. If you don't know about them, you can read about them in the Commission's report on the website. I want to tell you about us. The truth is, cruelty comes naturally to us. To humans, I mean, not maybe this particular group of people in the room. We're pretty nice people here in the room. But cruelty comes naturally to humanity in general. We all read Lord of the Flies, didn't we, when we were in high school? And if you haven't read Lord of the Flies, you can see it at work on the schoolyard grounds. Generally speaking, our cruelty is driven by fear and greed. We want more, and we're afraid someone else will get it. Sometimes we are genuinely afraid for our lives, afraid that someone will take that from us. And in the early 2000s, I think that's a lot of what was going on in this country. Maybe it still is going on in this country. But we had it in spades, starting September the 11th, 2001. Because this fear and greed is our natural inclination, nearly every faith tradition practiced by humanity puts the brakes on this behavior. My own faith tradition, Christianity, recently celebrated Easter, with all the flowers and all the children and all the festivity. In that celebration, we confess that peace is the only way to real life. We confess to follow a Savior who would die rather than fight back against an unjust system. And we tell that story every year to remind ourselves that without these stories, we will always regress to our baser selves. The stories tell us we can be better than we are. We can be people generous enough not to be afraid when we lose something. We can be brave enough not to torture others when we are afraid. And most importantly, we can admit when we have done something wrong. We're here today to admit that rendition, detention, and interrogation are wrong. We are here to confess that we can be better. Some of us may recall the story told in Christian communities around the world Friday, 2 weeks ago. The story about when they came for Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. They came out to arrest him with swords and clubs, as if he were a bandit. And one of his disciples took a sword and struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his ear. But Jesus touched his ear and healed it. And Jesus said, "No more of this. No more of this." Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.